Okay, so what if the deepest secrets of our past, maybe even like visitors from other worlds, aren't hidden way out in space, but right here, like literally right under our feet, in caves? Welcome to cool, weird, and possible.
It does sound pretty wild, doesn't it? Almost like science fiction. But, when you actually start digging into ancient stories, historical accounts from all over the globe, this theme keeps popping up, this connection between underground places and these really profound, sometimes totally inexplicable events.
Exactly. And that's precisely why we're doing this deep dive. We found some really fascinating source material, specifically looking at a video called Underground Alien Connections: What You Haven't Seen. And it seriously explores this ancient, kind of persistent, and honestly a little spooky connection between underground spots, caves especially, and these reports of encounters with beings, or maybe knowledge. That seems, well, not human.
Or at least, as the material suggests, encountering sources of information or technology that seem way beyond what you'd expect for the time period for the people involved.
Right. So our mission today for this deep dive is to unpack this really surprising recurring idea that caves might be these hotspots for spiritual awakenings, sudden technological leaps, or even maybe actual extraterrestrial contact. Why does this idea persist across so many different cultures and times? Let's get into it.
Absolutely. Looking forward to exploring the depths of this with you, geology and maybe something more.
Okay, let's start with something that shows up a lot in these accounts.
Hmm.
Caves as places for, more than just quiet time. We're talking intense, world-changing spiritual experiences. It goes way beyond just finding a peaceful spot to meditate.
Definitely. The source material highlights the story of Saiki Mao. He was an 8th century Japanese monk. He went off to meditate in this specific cave, Mikurodo Cave.
Right.
And according to the account, whatever happened in there, this encounter he had, he credited it with bringing him enlightenment. He came out of that cave, transformed basically, became the high priest Kukai, a hugely influential figure in Japanese history and religion.
And the details are pretty nuts. Kukai's own autobiography supposedly describes him meditating in another cave, the Cape Naruto, focusing on the morning star. And he says the star flew right at him,
Flew at him, yeah.
entered his mouth, and then he saw this vision, a being called Bodhisattva Kastagarbha, surrounded by light.
Mm-hmm. And the implication in the material we looked at is that maybe this wasn't just a mental vision, but some kind of actual physical or maybe energetic interaction and the result. After this happened, Kukai supposedly gained this almost unbelievable level of wisdom.
Like instantly.
Well, the video claims he could instantly understand 85,000 complex Buddhist texts. The idea put forward is that another being called Kokusho appeared in this trance state and told Kukai he was now like a conduit to the universe.
A conduit.
Yeah, essentially accessing some kind of huge cosmic database, information about stars, planets, everything.
Okay, hold on. Database. Accessing the universe's database in a cave. My weirdo meter is definitely pinging hard on that one. That's not the usual picture I had of Buddhist meditation.
Well, the source quotes Ken Jeremiah, who points out that many Buddhists do see caves as transformative spaces. He describes it as sort of like a room where a normal person goes in, does the intense spiritual work, and comes out changed, more like a saint or even a Buddha. So that heightened state in caves is a reported phenomenon in Buddhism.
But this source material, it immediately jumps to the ancient astronaut theory, right? It asks, could this enlightenment, this sudden knowledge dump, actually be coming from an extraterrestrial source? Not from space, necessarily, but maybe from inside the Earth itself.
That's the connection they make, yes. They linked it to concepts like Shambhala, that mythical hidden city, usually placed in the Himalayas. It's supposed to be home to these enlightened beings who have incredibly advanced technology, which they got through their enlightenment.
Ah, okay.
So the theory explored is that maybe some Buddhist traditions see caves not just as quiet spots, but as literal conduits, passageways to altered states, maybe other dimensions, or even, civilizations hidden inside our planet.
And they mention places like the sky caves of Mustang in Nepal. These hundreds of man-made caves carved way up high in cliffs.
Exactly. Some only reachable by climbing these massive vertical shafts. And inside, they find statues of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas.
Just makes you wonder, why go to all that incredible effort, building sacred sites in places that are almost impossible to get to, unless they believe these spots were profoundly important. Maybe like literal entrances to something else, something hidden.
It's a valid question prompted by the sheer scale and difficulty.
So is this all just a Buddhist thing, this intense focus on caves for hidden knowledge or transformation? Does it pop up anywhere else?
Oh, definitely not just Buddhism. The video points out that Hindus also have a deep reverence for caves as places of wisdom. You have the sadhu, the Indian holy men.
Right.
They often go into self-imposed exile in caves, specifically to reach altered states of consciousness. They believe these caves can act as conduits, ways to communicate with non-human entities, like opening a doorway to talk with divine beings or other kinds of consciousness. Think about the Amarnath cave in the Himalayas, huge pilgrimage site. It's said that the god Shiva revealed the secrets of immortality there.
Secrets of immortality in a cave. Okay, so we've got these really powerful spiritual moments, knowledge that seems to come from outside, even divine secrets, all linked to going underground. It really makes you ask, is there something about the caves themselves? You know, the darkness, the quiet, maybe even the geology or acoustics. Does that somehow make these experiences happen? Or is it more like a shared cultural idea, a way different people just interpret mysterious underground places and connect them to the unknown?
That's the core question, isn't it? Is it psychology, the environment, something geological,
Yeah.
or something genuinely unexplained interacting with people there?
Yeah. And speaking of people having these massive life-changing moments connected to caves, it wasn't just monks and holy men, according to these stories. This is where it gets really interesting for me.
The video brings up Leonardo da Vinci. It mentions he had this unusual but important experience while he was exploring near the mouth of the cave.
Right. And the timing is what gets me. Apparently, right after this cave thing, he just disappears for 2 years, vanishes.
Mm-hmm.
And when he comes back, boom, this absolutely incredible explosion of creativity and invention. He's sketching things like a self-propelled vehicle, designing flying machines,
Right.
stuff that wouldn't actually be built for centuries.
And the implication dropped by the source, obviously, is that maybe that cave encounter somehow gave him a sudden flood of advanced knowledge or inspiration. Maybe even blueprints, who knows?
Then you've got the story of Joseph Smith. The material talks about the angel Moroni appearing to him in 1827.
Right, with specific instructions.
Exactly. Go to this hill, find a cave, and inside you'll find unknown writings, which turned out to be the golden tablets. And the video describes those as containing a vast amount of data.
So another case where a cave is the specific location for receiving what's presented as profound, externally delivered information, this time in a physical form.
It's like these major historical figures, people who really change things, have these accounts linking their big breakthroughs or discoveries to caves. And often there's a mysterious being or artifact involved, which leads us right into a big modern mystery that seems totally wrapped up in one specific cave. The Cave of Tayos in Ecuador.
Tayos Cave, yeah. Deep in the Amazon rainforest, eastern slopes of the Andes. It's in the traditional lands of the Shuar people. And the video stresses this point: the Shuar have fiercely guarded this place, kept it secret.
And the story, as it's often told, kind of kicks off with Father Crespi. He was an Italian missionary living among the Shuar.
Apparently very well loved, respected by them.
So much so that they'd often give him gifts. But here's the weird part. A lot of these gifts weren't typical Shuar crafts. They were these intricately carved objects, some made of gold or other metals, with symbols and designs that look nothing like Shuar culture, or really any known ancient South American culture.
And those artifacts caught the eye of Erich von Daniken. He wrote about Crespi's collection in his, let's say, controversial 1973 book, Gold of the Gods.
Controversial is putting it mildly.
Right. Von Daniken basically said these weren't gifts from the Shuar. He claimed they were actual treasures from some unknown, super advanced, lost civilization, and that they came from this legendary cave of Tayos.
Okay, so Von Daniken throws that out there, and it inspires this Scottish explorer, Stanley Hall. Hall was already researching South America, thinking it held a missing page of our free history. He went to Ecuador specifically to see Crespi's collection for himself. He was apparently really struck by one piece in particular, a metal tablet with 36 lines of writing that nobody could translate. Crespi said the Shuar gave it to him.
And seeing that tablet really set Hall on a mission. In 1976, he puts together this huge expedition to actually go explore the Cave of Tayos. Over 100 people involved.
Including Neil Armstrong.
Including Neil Armstrong, the astronaut, yeah. He had a personal interest in exploration. They went in through a known entrance, one the Shuar used, in the jungle.
So what did they find? Was it the treasure room?
Well, what they found was fascinating, but maybe not the treasure Von Daniken imagined. Hall's team reported seeing large areas inside the cave that looked, well, excavated or maybe shaped by someone or something that seemed to have tools or methods beyond simple digging.
Shaped how?
Dr. Brian Kelly, who was the head of the British geological team on the expedition, apparently admitted it was hard to explain some of the large, precisely cut doorways they found deep inside the cave system using just standard geology or archaeology.
Huh. Okay.
Right.
So weird shapes, but no gold library.
They did find some important things, like a tomb chamber with artifacts dating back to around 1500 BC, including a stone ring. So it confirmed ancient people definitely used the cave, but crucially, no. No metallic books, no golden statues, none of the really bizarre artifacts like the ones Father Crespi had.
Okay, so if the main entrance didn't have Crespi's weird stuff, where the heck did he get it from? This just gets weirder, doesn't it?
It absolutely deepens the mystery. Hall didn't quit, though. Years later, in 1991, he managed to track down an Ecuadorian man named Petronio Jaramillo. And Jaramillo claimed that he had been inside the Taos cave system way back in 1946 when he was young.
Okay.
But here's the kicker. Jaramillo said he didn't use the jungle entrance everyone knew about. He claimed he got in through a secret underwater entrance.
Whoa, an underwater entrance. Okay, now we're talking Indiana Jones level stuff. What did he say he saw?
His description is just incredible, straight out of a Lost World story. He claimed he wandered through these vast chambers filled with ancient relics, and he described one huge room that was entirely filled with books. Books made of gold and other metals.
The books, like Crespi's tablet.
Exactly like Crespi's tablet, and maybe like the description of Joseph Smith's golden tablets, too. Jaramillo said the writing on them was completely unrecognizable, looked like complex formulas, and contained, in his words, one spectacular statement after another.
Wow. So this perfectly fuels that ancient astronaut idea, right? That maybe some ancient, super advanced civilization, maybe not even from Earth, used this cave system like a vault, a hidden library or time capsule to leave stuff behind.
That's precisely the argument it supports. But here's the truly heartbreaking part of this story, which the video emphasizes. Petronio Jaramillo died before he could ever show Stanley Hall where that secret underwater entrance was.
No.
And then Stanley Hall himself passed away in 2008. He never found Jaramillo's entrance or that rumored library of metal books.
Oh, man. That's rough. So the trail went cold.
Well, apparently Hall's daughter Eileen is trying to continue his research. But as the source material points out, until or unless that treasure is actually found, and if it is, until someone can translate that rating, it's all just this huge, tantalizing question mark. Who made these things? Why hide them there? Who were these people or beings with seemingly impossible knowledge?
It's such a perfect example of this whole pattern we're tracing. Caves, weird artifacts, hints of advanced knowledge or contact, and origins that just don't fit the standard history books. The fact that these kinds of stories keep popping up, different places, different times, that's what makes you really wonder.
Exactly. It forces you to at least consider possibilities that are way outside the mainstream historical narrative.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit from physical objects and historical figures to something maybe more symbolic. Or maybe, if you follow the thread from the source, potentially literal. The link between caves and ideas about underworlds or even cosmic doorways.
The video uses a really powerful example from the Mayans down in Yucatan, Mexico. There was this incredible discovery back in 2008, a huge underwater cave system. Not just one cave, but like 14 interconnected underwater caves.
And inside.
Inside, they found stone temples, strange offerings, and evidence of human sacrifices.
Well, okay.
And this whole underwater complex is now widely thought to represent the Mayan underworld, which they called Shibboleth. It's described in their sacred book, the Popol Vuh, the Book of the Jaguar Priests. The amount of work involved is just staggering. Some of this was built underwater. Imagine divers holding their breath to carve intricate details into stone down there.
That's unbelievable devotion. So this was their representation of the journey after death.
That's the understanding, yes. Their religion taught that to rejoin the gods, the soul had to undertake this dangerous journey through the dark underworld, and these caves seem to be a physical manifestation or gateway for that belief.
Okay, so that's the mythological take. But of course, the ancient astronaut theory presented in the source material sees it very differently.
Right. They suggest Shibboleth might have a cosmic connection, not just an earthly underworld one. They mention Dr. Linda Sheely, a code breaker who studied Mayan language and astronomy. She proposed an alternative meaning for the word Shibboleth,
Which was?
not underworld, but the Milky Way.
The Milky Way. So the Mayans were amazing astronomers, we know that. Are they suggesting that this whole underworld journey wasn't about going down, but maybe about going out? To to the center of the galaxy?
That's the radical reinterpretation put forward, that maybe when the Mayan texts talk about the underworld, they're actually using it as a metaphor for the sky above, specifically that dense band of stars in the Milky Way. Maybe they saw that as the destination or origin point for their gods or other celestial beings.
And so the cave itself becomes what? Not just a symbol.
Exactly. The idea presented, which David Wilcock voices in the video, is that maybe the caves, the physical place here on Earth, could be seen as more than just a tomb entrance or a symbol. It could be viewed as a literal portal, a gateway, a place where maybe extraterrestrials could travel back and forth between their reality, their dimension, and ours.
A portal in a cave. Okay, that's definitely pushing the boundaries. Blending mythology, astronomy, and geology into, well, ET travel hubs.
It's certainly a framework that attempts to connect a lot of disparate elements, Mayan beliefs, their known sky knowledge, and the physical caves into one grand alternative narrative.
Okay, let's shift one more time. From artifacts and potential portals to something just undeniably huge and physical, massive underground cities. The video explores these places that weren't just little meditation spots, but enormous complex structures built deep, deep down.
And the prime example they focus on is Derinkuyu in the Cappadocia region of central Turkey. Now, that area is known for its unique geology, the soft volcanic rock that people have carved dwellings out of for thousands of years.
Right, the fairy chimneys and stuff.
Exactly. But the discovery at Derinkuyu in 1963 was completely accidental and on a whole different scale. A guy was renovating his house, knocked down a wall in his basement, and revealed a hidden passage leading down into something immense.
And when you say immense,
We're talking an underground city, likely thousands of years old, carved down over 280 feet deep. That's like 13 stories underground.
13 stories carved out of rock. How big was it?
Big enough to house potentially over 20,000 people. Men, women, children, it had everything. Living quarters, religious centers, huge storage rooms, areas for making wine, even stables for animals, and the engineering. The video highlights this incredible ventilation system. They found something like 15,000 smaller shafts designed to bring fresh air all the way down to the deepest levels.
So I've been picturing that. Building that thousands of years ago, without modern machinery, without lasers for leveling, without structural analysis software, it's just mind-boggling. The video calls it a stupendous undertaking and compares the effort to building the pyramids.
And they had to be smart about it, too. That volcanic rock is soft. Carving out huge rooms like that without causing catastrophic collapses requires real planning, careful attention to leaving strong enough pillars. The fact that it didn't all collapse suggests a surprisingly high level of engineering skill for whoever built it whenever they built it.
Which, of course, leads right back to that question the ancient astronaut theory loves to ask.
Yeah.
How on earth did they do this? Way back then, the video puts it bluntly, maybe they had help. Help from some other civilization.
Now, it's important to present the mainstream view, too. Archaeologists generally date Derinkuyu's major construction phase to around 800 BC. They usually attribute it to the Phrygians, perhaps expanding on even older, simpler tunnels, maybe dug by the Hittites centuries earlier.
And the reason? Why build it?
The consensus explanation is that it was a massive, sophisticated, but ultimately temporary shelter, a place to hide from the constant invasions that swept through that region over the centuries.
Okay, hiding from invaders makes practical sense for needing an underground refuge. But the source material we're looking at challenges that timeline and that purpose, doesn't it? It connects Derinkuyu to something much, much older and a totally different kind of threat.
It does. It points out that Cappadocia was part of the ancient Zoroastrian Empire, Zoroastrianism being one of the world's oldest continuous religions, and they focus on a specific Zoroastrian holy text, the Vendidad, particularly its second chapter.
And what's in that chapter?
Well, it tells a story that sounds a bit like Noah's Ark, but with a twist. It describes the main god, Ahura Mazda, warning a prophet figure named Yima about a coming worldwide environmental disaster that will wipe out life.
Okay, like the flood.
Except Ahura Mazda tells Yima not to build an ark to survive a flood, but to build a vara, an underground refuge. The description of this vara is strikingly similar to Derinkuyu, and the purpose wasn't to escape water, but to protect a select group of people, animals, and seeds from a devastating global ice age. The text calls it the Evil Winters.
A global ice age. Wow. And the video connects us to actual climate science, right? The timing.
Exactly. It points out that the last major ice age reached its peak around 18,000 years ago, and the really harsh conditions didn't fully end until maybe 10,000 BC. That's vastly older than the conventional 800 BC date for Derinkuyu.
So the source is basically asking, Could Derinkuyu be the Vara? Could it have been built maybe 12,000 or more years ago as a shelter against the end of the Ice Age, just like the Zoroastrian text describes?
Yeah.
Since you can't carbon date stone, how do we really know how old it is? Could this city and that ancient story point to a human history, a history of survival that's way older than we think, a history we just haven't seen yet?
Those are the provocative questions the material leaves us with regarding Derinkuyu. It definitely makes you reconsider the standard timeline when you juxtapose the structure with that ancient text.
It really does. Wow.
Yeah.
We have covered a lot of ground today. Or maybe underground.
Huh. Yes. Wait a bit. We started with spiritual enlightenment in Japanese caves, potentially linked by the source to cosmic databases.
And then jump to historical figures like Da Vinci and Joseph Smith, whose huge breakthroughs or discoveries, like the Golden Tablets, are tied in these accounts to mysterious cave encounters.
We looked into the whole baffling mystery of Father Crespi's artifacts and the enduring legends of a hidden library of metal books deep inside Ecuador's Tayos Cave, possibly left by some unknown ancient group.
And we explored caves not just as holes in the ground, but as maybe symbolic or even literal portals like the Mayan underworld, Shibboleth, possibly being reinterpreted as a path to the Milky Way.
And finally, we wrestled with the sheer scale and mystery of huge underground cities like Derinkuyu in Turkey, challenging conventional dates and explanations, especially when you bring in those ancient Zoroastrian texts about surviving an ice age underground.
That recurring theme is just so strong, isn't it? Caves, underground places, they keep getting linked in these stories across totally different cultures to deep knowledge, weird bees, hints of advanced tech, and even surviving global disasters.
Yeah, you have the standard explanations on one side. The psychology of isolation helping meditation, the obvious practical uses, shelters from weather or war, the symbolic power of the Earth's depths in mythology.
Right, the logical stuff.
But then you have these alternative theories, driven by the source material we discussed, pointing towards something much stranger, much more extraordinary. Potential ET contact, cosmic gateways, maybe actual help from non-human civilizations, or evidence of humanity surviving catastrophes far older than we usually imagine.
It's that perfect blend of the conventional versus the cool, weird, and maybe, just maybe, possible. It definitely makes you look at caves a little differently.
It certainly does. Well, thank you for joining us on this particular deep dive into these underground connections.
Yeah, this was a fascinating trip, wasn't it? Definitely went into some dark corners, literally and figuratively.
And I think the material really leaves us and you listening with a powerful final thought to chew on. Considering this pattern exists globally, these persistent stories popping up in wildly different cultures and times, are they all just separate myths, random coincidences? Or could this recurring theme, the underground connections, the hidden knowledge, the mysterious encounters actually hint at a shared piece of human history, maybe even a global one that we just haven't fully grasped yet? A history we truly haven't seen. What part of all this stands out most to you?
Definitely something to think about next time you pass a cave entrance. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.